So for February, I'm going to talk a little bit more about compatibility in relationships. I already have a playlist where I talk a lot about synastry and compatibility. If you want to check that out, I will link that. But I also want to remind people that when we're talking about compatibility and relationships, they don't always have to just be romantic. Yes, I'm going to be speaking from the romantic point of view. However, you can apply this to relationships in general. And I always say with people, when you're listening to my content, take what you need and also internalize your own experience to understand how it may look for you. Okay, because I'm here talking with the general information and trying to give as many examples to you as I can. But of course, this is not a chart reading, so there are going to be unique circumstances that you have, right? Now, there are going to be some questions that you want to ask yourself when you're looking at your compatibility with someone else's chart. So we're going to start with the big three. People refer to the sun, the moon, and the rising as the big three. They are a starting point, especially when you are first looking at astrology, or if you're looking at your chart and someone else's chart, and the first things you want to look at sometimes are the sun, moon, rising. Of course, Venus, if we are thinking about likability. Do we like each other? Are we compatible in that area? So the sun, as a reminder, is your core energy. It is often what you are the most conscious about yourself, whether you love yourself, if you don't, hopefully you do. The sun is our consciousness, right? It is what we are the most confident expressing about ourselves. Even if you have negative aspects to your sun, even if you have a person that's always melancholy, a person that's always down on themselves, right? That's what they're projecting. That's what they're showing. And that's what they're most comfortable showing the world about who they are. And so sun traits, we want to look at trines and conjuncts if you're, the same exact sign, all these other things. Semi-sextiles can be great opportunities. We know oppositions and squares can be at odds with each other, but it is not impossible to get along. You want to ask yourself, like, how similar are our traits? Are they harmonious? Are they at odds? Do I feel validated? Do you feel validated within this union, right? So if you have someone that has an inconjunct, your sun is in Libra, theirs is in Pisces, something like that, it's not impossible. In fact, Pisces and Libra both tend to have an appreciation for beautiful things, for enchanting things, right? So that's where they get along. But in terms of personality traits and how they move through life, not all the time, right? Pisces can kind of be in their own internal world until they figure out what they really want, right? Pisces sifts through all these different feelings in order to finally come up with the conclusion, whereas Libra can feel like, well, let's look at both sides of it. And Pisces might be like, there are no both sides. I see where you're coming from, but I really want this. And Libra's an air sign. So there's always some level of thought and logic in many ways. And that's what really gets Libra stuck on that bridge. It's too many different possible ideas. But Pisces is more of that feeling, that urge, that instinctual type of decision making. So, but I do think that even though these are signs that are in conjunct, I don't think in conjunct signs are impossible. I really think that you can learn a lot from each other. And it's different than a square where there is this actual tension. So that's just an example. I do try to give examples within these types of videos. So the sun, look at your sun signs. What's going to likely be the energy between how we are as people, our personality traits? We know that we're beyond just our personality traits, right? Because you can have all these other aspects that benefit your relationship, but the sun is squared. All that can mean is that you just have different ways in which you present yourself to the world, right? It's not the end of the world. So we're thinking of the moon, the questions we want to ask ourselves. What is their emotional nature? What is my emotional nature? Will we feel comfortable expressing ourselves to one another? Do I feel validated emotionally with this person? Will I feel listened to? Right? The moon wants to be acknowledged for what it feels, okay? It doesn't matter if you're an emotional person or not. We all have a moon sign. We all have a natural response to life. The importance of our emotions being validated is different than the sun. You might have a person that says, yeah, me and my partner, we have very different personality traits, but we make it work. But you might have a person where it's like, hey, we have the same sun sign, but we have different moon signs, and I don't feel acknowledged emotionally. But on the outside, we get along, everyone thinks we're a great couple, but my inner needs aren't met. So with the moon, it is about this need to, feel that what you internally need is appreciated. And so I'll give an example. A moon in Aquarius, a moon in Scorpio person. These are fixed signs, and these are signs that can square. Now, again, you will have to look at you and another person's chart to see is it an actual square or is it far apart? Is it moon in Aquarius at the 0 degree and moon in Scorpio at the 23rd degree? That's not really directly squaring, but they are squaring as signs. So what I would say here is your moon in Aquarius person has this kind of need for, inner freedom. Moon in Aquarius is not about clutching on to something. Moon in Aquarius tends to let people be who they are. Moon in Aquarius does tend to take their obligations, I've seen this, take it quite seriously, right? We have to understand Moon in Aquarius is not the same energy as Uranus in Aquarius. But Moon in Scorpio kind of attaches itself to something, and it doesn't like to be as free willing and free going as in Moon in Aquarius. So the Moon in Aquarius might say, hey, I have this idea, I want to do something new. Moon in Scorpio might say, why would I do that? That's not, I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's not, that's not a part of the plan. I don't want to do that. I want to stick to what I feel makes me feel like I'm the most in control, right? It could be like every single year, you go on vacation to a certain spot, the Moon in Scorpio person, they organize it and everything, right? They're attached to that. Your Moon in Aquarius person is like, well, actually this year I bought tickets to a different place. Let's try something new. And it's not that the Moon in Aquarius person is wrong because, hey, it's great to get out and do new things. But the Moon in Scorpio person might hold on to that and resent that because there's a different energy. It's a different need. Moon in Aquarius needs a little bit more of that spontaneity. The Moon in Aquarius is always seeking to connect to things outside of itself. The Scorpio is trying to connect to what is attached to. And it's not that either person is always wrong or always right, but there's a difference in what their internal responses to things are going to be. Okay, so that can be that issue. The Moon in Scorpio is a water sign that feels very deeply. Aquarius is going to look at things rather logically. And that doesn't mean they don't care about you, but their first instinct is not to look at something as deeply as Scorpio does, especially when it comes to emotions. Scorpio might have a really good internal ability, a lot of emotional intelligence. They may understand themselves and other people very deeply, very well. They know like the back of their hands. Aquarius looks outside of themselves to understand things and situations and people. And so Moon in Aquarius, you could have an argument with the Moon in Aquarius and they're applying things to you that have nothing to do with you. Oh, I can't stand when people do this. Or why do people always do this, right? So Moon in Aquarius might make it impersonal. And that is going to really get on a Moon in Scorpio's nerves, especially in an argument or any situation. When Moon in Aquarius makes things impersonal, when Moon in Aquarius does not validate the feelings of the Moon in Scorpio person. Now, again, that does not mean that this placement can't work well together, but I'm just simply giving an example of where they can have difficulties. I think any people that want to make something work, they'll compromise and do it. Rising sign, a video where I talk about risings. I really like to discern. I like to use discernment and help people understand the difference between the sun and the rising. A lot of times people might try to use them interchangeably. The sun, core energy, traits. Rising is what you're responding to in life. The rising can sometimes indicate this impression people have of you because of what they see on this kind of surface. But it is beyond the surface. The rising sign is going to indicate, obviously, your chart ruler, what you are responding to in life, what you feel constantly confronted by, right? For instance, a Scorpio rising person, maybe you're a Gemini sun and you're a Libra moon and you have this lovely air energy, but you're constantly dealing with chaos or difficult situations, or you're constantly put in situations where you have to grow and transform. Rising sign energy is going to indicate, what is my partner? What is my friend? What are they here to do? What are they here to face, confront, and am I supporting that, right? If a person has a Sagittarius rising, adventure and travel, or themes of that, even if they're not a Sagittarius sun, are going to be important, right? They're going to that's a part of their mission, is to tap into that energy. Jupiter is their chart ruler. But if you're saying, no, I just want to stay home, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to support where you want to go, that might somehow cause a lot of issues with the Sagittarius rising person, because their instinctual need, remember, the rising is on the cusp of the first house. What rules the first house in astrology? Mars, instinct. Your rising can represent that instinctual need of what you are here to experience, confront, or respond to. So that's just an example there. If someone's a Cancer rising, helping them find what authentically matters to them, helping them find their roots, helping them find themselves, and supporting them on their journey to finding where they are comfortable, finding where they are familiar, finding ways in which they are aligning with their true emotional need, even if this is not a Cancer person, right? So other people's rising signs help us understand their direction. It helps us understand, what experiences are they going to have to deal with that we may not necessarily deal with as much. And so I think when we're talking about partnership, knowing your partner's chart helps you understand what experiences, what moments, what situations to best support them with. Personal planets. Now, obviously, we know that, of course, we can consider the sun and the moon. I just call them, they are the big three. Personal planets are the sun, moon. We know technically sun and moon are not actual planets, but in astrology, they are considered planets for simplicity's sake. But we know the personal planets are the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So Mercury, what are our communication style? What is my communication style? How do we tend to think? How do we best learn? If you know a couple or people that are just, they have a beautiful relationship, they support each other, they love each other, but they struggle when it comes to communication. And sometimes there could be different transits that bring that energy out. You might be like, whoa, what is happening here? Why are we having such a gap in our communication with each other? Mercury is more important in relationships than people think. You are communicating all day long, right? Whether it's with friends, partners, whether it's with family members, co-workers, people in public, you are communicating. You're calling somebody up because you want to call about your phone bill. That is communication. And when we are talking to people, even online, our Mercury signs come out. And so it is important to understand what your partner needs. You might be more laid back with communication, but they need all the details, right? And Mercury and Virgo, nope, I need to know all the details, when, why, how, right? Whereas you might be like, look, I'm kind of go with the flow type of person. So it's not about that you have to change who you are for another person, but it's about meeting in the middle. And sometimes a person might have more needs than you in one area. You might say, I don't care about the details. Let me know and I'll be there, right? You might be So let's look at this. So what if you have a Mercury in Pisces and a Mercury in Cancer person? Okay. Well, water signs, of course, they're both water signs. They both may deal best with feeling like people are tending to their emotions when they're speaking to them. They want to be spoken to like a person, right? You have a Mercury and Capricorn person that can deal with, just give me the facts, just give me the logistics, tell me what's going on, right? Even Mercury and Taurus. But when you have Mercury, even, right, the Earth Mercuries are just very like, tell me how it is, tell me what it is, tell me the facts, or tell me what needs to be done, or just give it to me straight. Water energy needs a different approach, and it doesn't mean they need one, right? The average water sign Mercury person can go through life just fine, not always having their emotions tended to. But what I'm saying is they're going to respond the best to feeling like their feelings or their humanity is spoken to. And so with Mercury in Pisces and Mercury in Cancer, this can be a sign that really is expressive with their emotions. They're expressive with how they feel, but sometimes you can get caught up in feelings if you're, especially in relationships where obviously emotions are a part of a relationship. It doesn't really matter what your gender is or who you're attracted to. Like that's what, right? There's always an emotional level to relationships, regardless of the individual situation at hand and what types of emotions people tend to show. But the point here would be Mercury in Pisces, Mercury in Cancer would have a similarity. However, just because something is similar doesn't mean it's always what's best for each other. So it would depend on other parts of the chart and just the way the people interact with one another. Venus. So we know when we talk about love, we talk about money, we talk about value, Venus. Venus is important to understanding our value to other people, right? What makes us feel appreciated? Look at your Venus sign, right? What do we value? What do we prefer? A lot of times we talk about Venus, we forget it's likes and dislikes, especially when we tag into the Taurus part of Venus. And that's basically, right, our tastes, what we value, what we place some level of importance on. Okay, who do we attract? Your Venus sign can help you a lot understand what types of people that are going to be drawn to you. Okay, especially when we talk about feminine energy. So Venus is important in terms of understanding what does my partner, or what does this person that I'm interested in, what do they like? What do they appreciate? Now, of course, when you go deeper in astrological readings, you will see if there's any afflictions. If Venus is square Saturn, okay, there might be some issues there in terms of this person's feelings of long-term commitment, or this person, if Venus is opposing Uranus. Okay, does this person feel restricted in relationships? Does this person feel that they are smothered in relationships? They want more freedom. You would have to look at their chart. But in general, this is what we would get with Venus. An example here is Venus in Libra and Venus in Aquarius. Water energy. Air energy. Both are air signs. But what we can see here is what's going to happen. Venus in Libra appreciates and likes those kind of surface level modes of romantic relationships, right? Venus in Libra, Venus rules Libra, Venus likes that. The rose petals, the romantic outings, right? Venus and Libra may talk even a big game about those types of things. That does not mean every person is actually that romantic individual, but Venus and Libra, their approach to romance is going to be kind of that typical way in which you deal with romance, especially if the person has any Capricorn in their chart. There's a traditional way in which they view relationships, right? You're going to get the movie type of experience, right? Especially in the beginning. Venus in Aquarius might want to do something different. A dinner. Well, let's go roller skating. Let's go to a park and talk. Let's go here and do something new, something interesting. Now, air energy tends to like ideas. Venus and Libra may toy around with that idea for a little bit, and maybe they'll come to a compromise, or maybe they'll say, okay, well, can we go on this date first and then later we can do that, right? Air has a better way of flowing through each other. So depending on other parts of the chart, this actually could work, but I want us to understand, just because two signs are air does not mean they're going to act the same exact way. However, air is going to feel more that fluidity in speaking to each other, in proposing these ideas, because Venus and Libra, though it can have quite these kind of standards and expectations, Libra is able to look at both sides of situations. And if that Venus and Aquarius person can also make the other person feel like they're listening, right? Okay, yes, let's do this one, and next week you pick the date. That is kind of the best way for Venus and Libra and Venus and Aquarius energy, I think, to kind of work through any of those initial differences and ideas. Now, Mars. Venus is what who we attract, right? Because remember, Venus can also be associated with a social standing, people who like us. That's Venus, who like us. Mars, people who respect us, or people, Saturn is more respect, but Mars is people who are, what are we attracted to? It's the energy that is more forthcoming. It is the energy that is more primal. It is more, direct. It is more worthy of that kind of action. Mars requires action. So it could be questions around, how do we approach challenges? So let's look at someone's Mars sign. How do they approach life? What do they do? Do they kind of sink her into a slumber, or do they say, you know what, I'm getting back up, I'm going to get what I want, right? Look at their charts. Like, what is their Mars placement? Now, again, there's benefits. Oh, wow, I want the person that goes for what they want. But then you can't have a person that goes for what they want, even in relationships, and it feels like it's all about them. So that is important to note when you be careful what you wish for. But it also can be questions around each person, like, what do we do when we want to get what we want? What do we do? You can sometimes see power dynamics in the charts of two people. The Mars and Pisces person, if something fits their vision of what they want, they're typically going to go along with it. So you might have like a Mars and Capricorn person. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn is really good at executing plans. It's really good at executing things that it wants to keep for long term. And so Mars and Pisces might be like, you know what? Never thought about where I was going to live, but my Mars and Capricorn partner just told me, they're moving somewhere, and they're I can come too. And I like that. I've always wanted to live in a warmer climate. Let me go. Right. So it depends on a lot of different things, but that's an example of how that energy could play out between two people. But Mars is also, what are we attracted to? Mars sign helps us see the thing we are drawn to. It is what Venus is where I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable here. These types of people make me comfortable. What house is your Venus in? What sign is your Venus in? Mars, what am I attracted to? People, places, opportunities. That's Mars. Another example is Mars in Aries and Mars in Gemini. So by sign, Aries and Gemini sextile each other. So what can really work here is these people are very adventurous. Mars in Aries is willing to, take initiative. Yeah, let's do this. Mars in Gemini can change directions quite easily. So this could be, these Mars placements can have a lot of fun with each other. Sextiles are opportunities. You do have to make some things work. You might have to, compromise a little bit. That's a fire and that's air. But that's an example of signs that can kind of get away with that kind of entertainment of aspect of the relationship, fun, not being too serious, right? But, we have to look at what else is in these people's charts. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are referred to as social planets. I know that sounds interesting, like Saturn, right? Saturn and social, but that's what they're considered. Now there's social planets as well. We want to think about, these are to do with societal types of things. Jupiter, we know, can represent the way you expand. Saturn represents our responsibility, and Saturn can represent challenges, how we overcome things, our responsibilities, and how we are self-disciplined. Jupiter, our ability to grow. Our growth is there. So Jupiter, in many times in astrology, is considered to be one way to look at your spouse. Now, when you're thinking about marriage, for people that want to get married or choose to or are, etc., there's more to it than just Jupiter. There's more to it. I use Juno a lot when I'm talking about the ideal relationship. There's so many components. We got to look at where your Venus is and where you feel comfortable. We're talking about that. It's a whole lot. But Jupiter can show us who we are likely to expand our family with. If you choose to have a family, if you choose not to, that's cool as well. But Jupiter can also help you understand what themes are likely to impact my experiences with marriage. I did the video a couple of months ago where I talked about placements that are unlikely to be married, tied down, placements that are likely to not view marriage or relationships as important, okay? But for here, we can look at these energies of Jupiter is going to show where you are going to expand. That's why you also sometimes Jupiter, 5th house, Jupiter placements can help us understand children that people are going to have. So think of Jupiter as that. I think that's personally why Jupiter can represent the spouse. Yes, there's a whole myth behind Jupiter. We all know that. But I also think it's Jupiter's expansion and growth. And when you're expanding and growing, you're growing your family typically. So that's what I view it as. So an example here could be, well, where's the person's Jupiter and where's your Jupiter? Where are you most likely to expand? Does it match up? You have your Jupiter in the Earth house. They have their Jupiter in the Earth house. So both of you have the ability, or you're going to have luck in expanding in ways that bring stability to you and your family. So that's how you benefit. But let's look and see. If you have Jupiter and Libra in the 9th house and all other things match up, maybe you're sad, you have Sag in the chart. And so there's a lot of Jupiter Sag energy. Jupiter and Libra in 9th house, you're going to feel exuberant. You're going to feel the most growth when you're traveling with other people, especially your partner or someone that you care a lot about. You like going on vacations with people that you appreciate, that you respect. You may not be a lone wolf type of person. Now, again, wait a minute. This is not your birth chart. So if you're like, whoa, that's not me. We are not doing a reading right now. But I'm saying in general, there's always going to be some energy of this in your chart. Even if something has not yet happened for you, right? It's there waiting for that experience. Maybe you need the right partner to come around to activate that Jupiter and Libra, right? You get what I'm saying? Like maybe your relationship, your partner doesn't want to do anything or go anywhere, and then you break up and you meet this new person and they want to travel the world. But Jupiter and Libra in the 9th house, you need that experience, exposure. You need to feel excited about what you're doing with your partner. And you are going to always need that feeling of they're willing to take adventures with me. And if you're not getting that need met, that can sometimes cause issues. Saturn, when you look at Saturn, we know that this is about commitment long term. Saturn's mature, it takes a long time. How do we each view long-term commitment? How committed are we when it comes to dealing with difficult situations? Your person has Saturn in Aries. Well, Saturn is considered to be in fall when it's in Aries. Okay, it's exalted in Libra. So this person has a lot of maturity to undergo. They have a lot of experiences. They have to learn how to do things on their own, perhaps. You have Saturn in Capricorn, right? So your Saturns are squaring each other. And so, again, that doesn't make anything impossible. It just means that is your challenge to overcome. Every relationship has some level of challenges. Maybe some people have more than others, but Saturn is going to help us see, what is this person committed to though? Maybe you have a person that's very, very just out there, can't commit, but when you look at, but they are committed to their job.
The other areas of their life, but that's Saturn's in the 10th house, and they care about achieving. They care about public perception of them being high achievers. You get what I'm saying? So Saturn is going to help you see that. If you're like, whoa, this person is so committed to this topic or this area of life. Why is this person so committed to learning and education? They have Saturn in the 3rd house. Why is this person so competitive? They're so serious about their hobbies and their interests. I don't get it. Saturn in the 5th house, right? It's so, why is this person holding on so tightly to this idea that people have to get married and people have to be in relationships? Why? Saturn is in that 7th house, right? And Saturn's 7th house can bring about some other things, delays, limitations, breakups, divorce, loss. There's a whole thing with Saturn 7th, but, think about that. When you're looking at long-term commitment, do your Saturn placements trine each other? What is Saturn doing in each person's chart? Is there a link? Maybe that person's Venus is conjunct your Saturn. And that helps us understand why your relationship is lasting. And another example is, I've noticed this a lot. Okay. Saturn and Virgo. Saturn and Virgo people are willing to make it work. Saturn and Virgo people want to make it work. But Saturn and Virgo people can often have difficulties in their marriages, breakups, split ups, the partner's not acting right, things like that. Virgo is about improvement. It's about fixing and mending things, but we know Saturn is about, right? Saturn's about, it's about challenges, limitations, things that can create a boundary, of getting what you want. So Saturn Virgo, again, it's not a bad placement. I don't really do that whole the bad. It just tells it like all of us are going to face some type of challenge in our lives. All of us in some way. And your chart just tells you the types you will. Okay. That's why I'm like, don't worry about what someone else's chart is. Don't wish upon a star that you had somebody else's chart. Work with what you have, because what you have, especially if you're spiritual, is there for a reason, and you need to figure that out, and you need to move the chess pieces where they need to be. So that's the thing with Saturn, think about that. But yeah, Saturn and Virgo, I've noticed these are people that will try very hard to keep up their image in their relationship. They'll keep up, they'll work really hard on it. The importance here is to make sure the partner is equally as invested in the marriage or relationship. What areas of our lives, right, are expanded and they are impacted by these generational planets, right? Uranus. What area of our lives are we each likely to experience disruption or oddities? Uranus, whatever your Uranus placement is the place in life where there's the most room for experimentation, but also where you do not fit the norm. And so the question is going to be, where do we each need freedom and individuality? My partner has this, I have that, this person has this, I have that. Where do I need to let them be free? Okay. So example could be, I haven't done an example on this with the people with the same sign, but let's say if you both have Uranus and Sagittarius, you both may have very unique experiences and belief systems. You both have Uranus and Sagittarius. Again, it's a generational type of aspect. Many people are going to have this, but you want to look at where it is in each person's house. You might have unique and strange belief systems on how you split up chores, 6th house. Your partner might have very unique beliefs and systems around emotions, 4th house, right? So Uranus can help you understand where your partner might veer even from the norm. And how much somebody wants to be like the norm is going to obviously be different. But I would say, like with Uranus, look at the aspects of your partner's chart and of your chart. Are there any squares? If there's squares, oppositions, and any of that, the person struggles being different. Because regardless of we all are individuals, we all are unique, we all want to feel like we belong somewhere, right? That's just a human experience. Neptune. Remember, Neptune is our dreams. It's our path to even spirituality for people who are spiritual. Everyone is not a spiritual being in that way, which means Neptune can mean something completely different for you than it does for somebody who is not intact with their spiritual side. Okay. But either way, Neptune can also represent the area that we are the least clear in. So that's why I said, like, is there an area where one of you needs to see reality? Okay. And I'll talk about that in a moment, but also, do you support each other's dreams? Okay. What is your partner's dream? What area of life do they need to take a little bit more time to get in tune with what they really desire and want? Have they been ignoring their true desires and wants? your partner has Neptune in fifth house. They need to be working on creative projects. And when they want to do that, let's support them, right? If it's not taking any money out the household, but they want to spend every Saturday going to paint, let's support that, if it's not hurting anybody. But when we talk about reality, Neptune, especially aspects to Neptune, your partner has squares to Neptune, we want to look there because there can be some delusion there. There can be areas of life where they are not realistic, and that can really create some tension. So an example is a person with Mercury in Pisces square Neptune in Sagittarius. Now, neither sign is not a problem, but we want to talk about, well, one, we know Mercury in Pisces, it struggles, right? Mercury, it has to now be in touch with its creative side. Mercury is not objective anymore, right? Mercury is kind of blocking out that need for those objective details and facts and things like that. And so what can happen is you can feel like, wow, this person is not being clear with me. This person is not telling me the truth. Neptune and Sagittarius. This person is not, giving me the energy that I need in order to understand, what they really feel about me. This person, they keep talking up a big game, but they won't follow up. That could be this type of aspect. Now let's make it worse. You're a Sagittarius sun and Sag moon, and truth is really important to you, and you got excited because you saw that this person has Neptune in Sagittarius. Oh, we're going to get along well. Well, maybe you have similarities in terms of having a belief system, in terms of expanding your horizons, but you also have to look at the fact that, wait a minute, this could be a difficulty for you. Right, so you want to be clear, especially if you're a Sagittarius, and you have Mercury in Capricorn. Well, you're now expecting there to be clarity in what your person is telling you. You're expecting there to be a timeline, right? Details and things like that, so that way you know how to best respond in order to, right? It's like, well, you told me you wanted this, so I went ahead and planned this, and now you're telling me that's not really what you meant, but you weren't really clear. Oh, I was clear. I told you that 40 times. No, you're exaggerating. That is that type of conversation. Now, Pluto, what changes are they likely to undergo in life? What is your partner likely to need to experience? What changes, what metamorphosis is going to likely occur? What areas of their life may require the most healing? We know Pluto can indicate trauma in some ways, events that have shaped a person, that have changed them. Now, again, we would want to look at the aspects in the chart. If there's a lot of positive aspects to Pluto, or Pluto doesn't really have that many aspects, it's not that, it's less likely that their trauma would have impacted them the way it might a person who has Pluto square Mars square Pluto, right? There could be violence and abuse in the past or things like that. So this is important. I think that, of course, we can ignore Pluto for moon and rising and all these other more accessible planetary placements, but Pluto is going to help us understand, Pluto can be hard. It can be great when it transforms your life in the right way, but it also can mean that there's going to be times in your life where you don't recognize another person as they're going through this experience, okay? And again, especially what's happening. If you have Sun conjunct Pluto, not Sun, I'm sorry, Saturn conjunct Pluto, even Sun, but Saturn return, right? Think about how that person is going to respond, or how that person did respond to their Saturn return. Pluto being in the fourth house, a person has a lot of healing to do in terms of emotions and family. So maybe that person doesn't want to have a family with you yet, or they don't want to have children because of, their own need to heal from what their experience was in the past. Now, again, I'm not saying every person with Pluto in the fourth house is going to have that experience. I think Pluto can also mean a person who had a very transformative upbringing, a person who was able to change for the better. Pluto in the fourth house can also represent having a very strong influence, a parent or someone who guided you that was very influential, a person who was very, driven to make sure that you had a better life, right? So Pluto doesn't always have to mean something bad. You would want to see what other aspects are there to it. Pluto can also be about spiritual transformation. This could be a very deeply spiritual person who is here to kind of take on that intensity of what spiritualism is. So there's many ways to look at this. Again, this is not a chart reading, but if the person has Pluto in the fourth house, allow them to grow emotionally. They're going to need to change and evolve emotionally to become the highest form of themselves. By itself, Pluto is not a bad thing, but we would want to look at what areas in the chart are supporting where that may. Wounds we each have from the past. I have a Chiron video. I have a couple Chiron videos, I believe. I know I have at least two. Is there an area they may be sensitive about that I need to be aware of? Chiron, you met the most confident person in the world. right? Or you have, your sibling is so confident, but it's like, well, let's look at their Chiron and see what they have to overcome. What are some things that have, and I think it humbles us. Having wounds sometimes humbles us. It helps us take better care of ourselves. Think about when you get an injury. Oh shoot, I just got this injury. I need to start doing this. I need to start working out more. I just stretched my, I just really hurt myself because I'm not in shape and I'm not doing this and that. Or wow, I'm never going to try that again because I got injured, right? Like, but then you heal because you learned from it. And so Chiron, can represent that need to assess what it is that's bothering you, assess the wound from the past, and really help yourself have goals that align with bettering yourself. A person with Chiron and Leo, it doesn't really matter how confident you think they are. There might be some issues with that. It also can mean like you're the type of person who likes to show your partner off. You're very extroverted and all this, and then you want your partner to come with you to every event and every family gathering, and that could be a bit much for them because if they're like, hesitant, shy, in the past they've had bad experiences with gatherings. Let's say they have Chiron in the 11th house in Leo, right? It's about acknowledging and noticing what energies could be. Now, again, you have to communicate and talk with people to really know how their energy plays out. Juno is the asteroid, marriage asteroid, significant partner. I don't go into, some people don't want to get married, and so I don't use astrology to force anything on anyone. But Juno can represent the lessons that we are here to learn about what partnership means for us. And for Juno, this is about what you each need to truly learn. Okay, yeah, you have your Venus, yeah, you have your Mars, but Juno is about what you're here to learn, the general aspects of relationships. And the aspects in the individual and between the couple matters. So that's another part of this. Your Juno might be wacky, but you have squares of this and Sun square Juno, and you're like, whoa. But maybe your partner and you have positive aspects, they have positive aspects to your Juno. And so their relationship helps you, come into formation of understanding yourself within that relationship role. An example, though, as well could be Juno and Libra square Juno and Capricorn. What can that mean? You're going to mean different things to each other. The Juno and Libra person is learning how to share. They're learning how to, complement one another, right? They're learning how to have that equal value. The Juno and Capricorn person is probably seeking a relationship. They're learning how to be ambitious. They're learning how to be successful, right? So though they're squaring, it doesn't always mean it's a horrible relationship, but this could mean accepting the fact that you're going to get different things from your relationship. And that's okay sometimes. That, you're both in a relationship, but you're in them. You can be in a relationship for different reasons as long as both of you are okay with that, Psyche and Eros aren't really spoken about a lot. These are asteroids. I like to work with them. I have 2 videos, if you want to check them out, where I talk more in depth about each of these placements. The whole myth, Psyche and Eros, if you've studied any of the mythology behind some of these, what some of the asteroids are called or some of the planets, what attracts you to people mentally is Psyche. You've heard the word someone's psyche, right? But in astrology, it's about mental connections. Like, who are you intrigued by mentally? And it can help us sometimes realize things that are not as abundantly clear in the birth chart. What I like about Psyche, I have Psyche and Gemini. I do like people who are thinkers, who are curious, people who, formulate their words a certain way. People who have great command of language. Like, I'm drawn to that, right? I'm drawn to people who are able to be objective as well. People who have insight, things like that. So that I have Psyche and Gemini. And so that, and I've also have Pallas in Gemini, but that's a different conversation. But that is why I think that I'm so drawn to that energy. I love the conversation. I love, even sometimes it's easier to text people than talk to them because you can think about what you're going to say. So that speaks to me. But my video, I go more in depth about Psyche sign. So if you have not yet seen that video, I will link it probably on this. So that's important. If you keep finding like, why every relationship I get in, I'm bored. If this person doesn't talk to me like this, or this person doesn't think like that, look at your Psyche sign, because that can help us understand the people that are going to really intrigue you mentally. That doesn't always mean that's who you end up with in relationships, but it can be a factor. Now, Eros is erotic love. And it speaks to your passionate side. And Mars is what we want. Mars can be really clear. It's abundant, right? But Eros goes deeper. It's not on the outside. You don't wear it on yourself. And so this is a more primal base of your sexuality. It is hidden motivation. So it's a lot deeper in terms of that intimacy level. Eros can sometimes, it doesn't always have to be logical, right? So Eros can be what you're drawn to, but that doesn't always mean that's who you end up with. That could be more of the moon factor. The moon is like, I feel safe, or this is who I want to be with. But Eros is more of that erotic side of yourself that is really sometimes awoken by certain relationships or certain experiences. Again, check out the video if you want to know more. The nodes. What role do the nodes play? Yes, in astrology, there is a lot around nodes and their impact. And so I would say with nodes, the south node is where you're coming from. It is your past life energy. So what energy are they shedding from a past life? If I'm looking, I know my chart. Let me look at someone else's chart. Is there shared karma? Right? Do we both have our south node in the same place? Now, it is very possible, especially if you are born within the same year range. It's possible you're going to have the same north node, same south node, but the way to look at it differently is to look at the degrees and the houses, of course, and any of the aspects of your own chart. So, but is there shared karma? Are there ways in which you are both learning the same lesson here? Are there any aspects to your south nodes with each other, showing that the partner will be helpful or a challenge towards your spiritual growth, right? Looking at that. People who are like, you know what? I didn't feel my purpose when I was with that person. I felt stuck. That could be a south node kind of karmic relationship, right? Maybe you're here just to learn something new from each other, and that's it. Maybe you're here to get together in this lifetime just to repair one part of your relationship, and that's it, right? Now, when we look at the north node, we start to think a little bit more with the person being aligned to your path. Are there planets and aspect to the north node that support each other's purpose and mission? Then you start to see, oh, that's why this person is here. That's what this person may provide for me, that outlet, that opportunity. So for an example, a north node in Cancer person, right? So they're here to learn about their own needs. They're here to care and nurture for something. They're here to be more in tune with their emotional side, their home life, their family, than they are success and ambition and stuff. If it's from the south node in Capricorn past, right? That's a south node they would have. But their partner has Venus in Cancer. So this can mean that the Venus in Cancer person provides that opportunity to that north node in Cancer or supports it. Your north node can involve other people, but at the end of the day, it's about you going for those things. You are aligning yourself with your north node energy, right? You have to take the bait. It's not just about someone else doing the work for you. But that would be important in terms of understanding your north node is, where are there aspects where this person, if I'm with this person and I think this is real and I think this can work, are there any energies that are showing that this is a relationship in which we are meant to help each other or support our mission and purpose? Now, do you have situations where one person's chart shows they are really here to help? They can help you, but you can't help them, or vice versa? Yes, that's where you get these lopsided relationships where somebody helps somebody launch a business and now their north node in Taurus in the second house is booming, right? But you didn't feel like you got anything from the relationship. It doesn't always mean a person was using you, but sometimes there are people who are here to help equip you, or you're here to meet for a reason, or they're here to plant the seed, right? So that does sometimes happen. So I have a video about the vertex where it talks about fate in your birth chart. Now, the vertex can often be associated with relationships, soulmate situations. I will say first, understand your vertex, your chart first, before you worry about your compatibility with someone else, okay? There are certain things in astrology you have to understand inside and out about your own chart before you try to find compatibility with another person, because you can definitely misinterpret what the energy means. Hoping and wishing on a star. But with the vertex, it is a fate indicator. I tell people it is not usually something to obsess. You can't obsess over it. It usually is when the moment comes, the moment comes. And by knowing what the vertex is, you can better recognize it, okay? Are there aspects indicating what our fate is together? So when you look at your vertex and your partner's vertex, you can understand, like, wait, what are we here to do, right? Do our vertex signs create any type of aspect with each other? Sometimes you can have vertex signs that are opposite energy. That means you're getting very different experiences. Maybe it was fateful for you to come together, but what you're each getting from that union is going to be very different. And I think people have to grow to be comfortable with that. People are like, but it's love and it has to have the same exact love. No, you don't. Meaning you can definitely have a situation where you love each other, you care about each other, but there's a different need being fulfilled. So that's one thing I would just note there. And does my vertex support the house areas that are thematic for my relationship? If you're trying to see if your relationship has any fate indicators to it, what do you notice? Are there any overlaps, right? Your vertex, if you do a composite chart, you can even see the vertex of that relationship, which I think is pretty cool. So you can even do that. But are there aspects indicating what areas are thematic? But if you have thematic experiences that you can relate to that vertex, then so you would really want to analyze where the placements are. You could even see if there's any overlaps of signs, houses, etc. One thing I will say is the vertex is incredibly nuanced. The vertex is so personal that even when I do birth chart readings, I tell you what your vertex could mean for you, but it is really up to you to know when that defining moment is. You know, you can go to a psychic and ask them, but for the most part, like, you know, there's always some spiritual work we have to do ourselves, that we are not all granted infinite knowledge to tell everyone every single piece that's going to happen to their lives, right? Like, that's just not typically how that works. And so I would say with the vertex, it is about like understanding your chart. Like I said earlier, it's not about obsessing over it, but it is about truly understanding and being aware that this can help understand the purpose or reason for your relationship. And guess what? It's not always good. It's not always good. We have to understand that fate can mean, wow, I met this person and they showed me what I didn't want in relationships. And then I went for someone completely opposite and now I'm happy, right? Like, that could be the experience there. So I always tell people to be realistic about astrology, to not be necessarily negative or dismal about it, but also recognize reality and understand the pros and cons of each energy, in order to understand what's best going to happen for you, and ways in which you can really, you know, respond to how life has been working out for you. And that's it for this video. Please hit the like button if you heard anything interesting or that resonated with you. Until next time.